Hi, I'm Adam and welcome to Bethesda Woodworks. This is my first video using my face and my voice. So here's my face, this is my voice. For my first video where I actually talk, I thought maybe I would give a tour of my very small shop. So let's get started. So here is my workshop. That's it. No, seriously, that's it. As you can see, my workshop is also known as my garage. It's also my pantry. And it's also my storage room. It's only about 200 square feet or 18 square meters. So because it's so small, I have to be as efficient as I can with the small space that I have. When we first moved into this house almost 17 years ago, I realized very quickly that there was no way we'd be able to fit 2 cars into this 2-car garage. So the first thing that I did was build this workbench. At the time, I had very few tools, very little experience, and even less skill. So this is probably the most basic workbench you will ever see. The back braces that the top sits on are just 2x4s screwed into the studs. The rest of the frame is just more 2x4s screwed together. No fancy joinery, no box joints, no dominoes, just deck screws. The bottom plates aren't even secured to the concrete floor. They just rely on the weight of the bench itself to hold it down, which fortunately works well. Underneath, 1/2-inch sheets of plywood sit on 2x4 blocks along the entire length of the bench, which gives plenty of storage space for all of this stuff. The top is 3/4-inch OSB covered by 1/8-inch hardboard just screwed to it. Over the years, I've added several drawers which run on hardwood runners. This one was actually the extension table on my previous table saw, which I turned upside down and now uses this drawer. The other drawers are just plywood scraps screwed together. Again, no fancy joinery, no dovetails. This third drawer I find particularly useful because it has this flip-up lid which holds all of my router bits. So to maximize space, I like to keep tools that I use together. So router bits are here, my router table is here. This is actually built into the extension wing of my table saw, which is a SawStop 1 3/4 horsepower professional cabinet saw. This is the centerpiece of my workshop. It's the tool that I use the most, including as a workbench, a sanding table, and an assembly table. No fancy downdraft tables here. It's mobile because sometimes I have to move the table saw around if I'm cutting large sheet goods or extra long trim pieces. I'll do a full review of this table saw in another video, but spoiler alert, this is a great machine and I cannot recommend it highly enough. If you can afford this, get it. Next, you may have noticed this thing on the wall behind me, and after my kids, this is probably the thing in my workshop that I like the most. This is my tool wall, which I built about 4 years ago after watching a video from, I think it was Matthias Wandel, who built a similar tool wall. Before that, I had a pegboard, and I hate pegboard. So after putting up with pegboard for about 10 years or so, I finally decided to make my own tool wall. It's very simple. It's just a sheet of 3/4-inch plywood screwed to the studs. When I finally decided to get rid of the accursed pegboard, I used my garage floor as a template and laid out all of my tools in the order that I used them the most, which for me are my hammers, chisels, screwdrivers, saws, and pliers. To make the hangers, I just put each tool on a piece of 2x4, traced the outline, cut them out with a bandsaw, and then screwed them to the plywood. Sure, I could have used hardwood and made them look pretty, but I don't believe in doing that. There are plenty of woodworkers on YouTube who make their workshop look nice, but for me, I would rather save the time and effort since my workshop is just for me and frankly, I don't really care how it looks. After all, it's a workshop, it's constantly covered in sawdust, and I just want my shop to be functional. Speaking of functional, next I'll move on to the rest of my large power tools, which are all mobile because they have to be so I can fit them all in here. I have a 14-inch Shop Fox bandsaw, which I just got a few weeks ago to replace an older Delta 14-inch. Other than my table saw, this is the only tool that I have that has its own dedicated mobile base that I didn't actually have to build. Behind the bandsaw is a Powermatic 6-inch jointer, which came with a mobile base when I bought it, but I found the footprint to be too big, so I built a new one. Behind the jointer is my Central Machinery 12 by 14-inch lathe, which is also on a homemade cart with casters and 2 shelves. Over here is my Grizzly drill press, which is shockingly heavy. It's also on a 2x4 stand with casters, which is very similar to my lathe stand. And there in the corner behind it is my Harbor Freight dust collector. It used to be over here, but I moved it over there closer to the garage door so any dust that escapes the dust bag would just go right outside. The dust collector cart is, not surprisingly, also built from 2x4s, and the platform is actually from a treadmill that my neighbor was throwing out. The dust hose goes behind my workbench and then out here, where I have a couple of dust hoses set up. Each of my large power tools has one of these quick connectors that I made, so whenever I want to use the tool, I just attach it like that. The miter saw is this 12-inch Hercules, which I love. I'll do a full review on this in the future. This was a huge upgrade over my previous miter saw. And speaking of things that I love, I love this flip-top tool cart. On the other side of it is this 13-inch Steel City planer. The cart has onboard storage for the adjustment tools for the planer, as well as a pencil and a tape measure. It also has this adjustable flip-up outfeed table from when I'm planing larger objects. This is also adjustable up and down for when I flip it over for support of the miter saw. Over here in this little corner next to our spare refrigerator is this little mobile stand, also made of 2x4s and MDF, that holds a rigid oscillating belt and spindle sander. The only reason I have it down here is because I didn't have any other place to put it, and that space was really the last one available. The last stop on our shop tour is up there. No, not the garage door opener, but that, my lumber storage. I used to have all my lumber stored in that corner where my dust collector lives now, but that was very inefficient and didn't make good use of the space, and lumber got buried behind whatever was in front. As for plywood and other large sheet goods, I didn't have anywhere to store them. So I first built this lumber rack above my workbench. Again, it's just 2x material and plywood screwed to studs. And then I built this plywood lift. You will probably be very not surprised to find out that it's just made of 2x4s screwed together and then attached via a couple of pulleys to hoists on my workbench. Well, that concludes the shop tour. There's a whole lot of other little things here and there that I can't really get into because there's just too much stuff and I really don't have the time, and you probably don't have the patience. But if you saw anything that you liked and want to know more about, please let me know down in the comments below. I hope you found this video useful, entertaining, educational. If you did, you know all the things that you can do to help out a small channel like mine. Thanks very much for spending some time with me. I hope to see you next time.